Hey there, welcome to episode 112 of the FFS Talk audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at 12:15 p.m. That's 12:15 in the afternoon Pacific Standard Time, here in Greater Vegas on this Thursday, January 15, 2026. It's Thursday. We normally release episodes on Thursday, usually earlier in the day, but we're pretty close. I think we'll make it. Today's title and topic, movie reactions. If you're not familiar with the FFS Talk audio program, this is a program designed to have discussions, debates, arguments even, conversations about what works, what does not, and what we might do about it. Thus far, and this is sort of by design, I have had no guests. I really don't ask for guests. They're welcome to come by, but I haven't really been pressing it. That is one of my goals for 2026. I was almost going to say 2026, but does anyone say that? 2026, the year of outreach, perhaps. Maybe we'll even get a response, although I don't hold my breath. So until then, planting seeds, 112 episodes today about various topics, and essentially a one-person take, one side of a potential discussion in the future. Anyone who would want to take a particular topic, maybe movie reactions, for example, and say, well, I have a different opinion. There you go. That's another episode with an actual guest. How cool would that be? Well, that remains to be seen. If you're not familiar with the FFS abbreviation, it's an expression I've heard many, many times, especially when I was in Ireland, many times. If you are not familiar with that expression or the abbreviation, you need to hang out with more Irish people. So hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary, 2 sentences, which I will read, the show or program links, which I will not spend as much time on. In the moving forward, I try to spend less time going over links unless there are episode links that I can offer some context for. But today, as has been the case recently, just the program links, the homepage, and so on. So let's get on with it so we can get on with our week and into the weekend, or whenever you're listening to this audio program. The summary of today's episode, there is an entire genre. I keep hearing people say genre. I don't know where that comes from. There is an entire genre of media production built around reacting to the content of others, whether movies, series, or the work of peer content creators. Check out episodes 33 and 63 of this very audio program for previous ponderings on this topic. But today, it's movie reactions. Let me add that on there. So this is where people react. They watch a movie, and then they react during the movie, and then they offer some sort of commentary or reflection after the movie. And this is a big business. There are a lot of people doing it. I just keep coming across. Of course, YouTube makes suggestions. They can do that all day. Recommended videos. Another reaction video from somebody I've never heard of. So it's going on. The links, as usual, the ffstalk.com homepage. That will be the primary point of publication for this audio program. Spotify and Apple and Amazon and all that, those will also remain. But eventually, it's always good to own your brand and its content. So make a note of it. It's been making the website attractive and featureful has been on the to-do list for too long, but I don't really have a lot of web traffic, so I haven't been going crazy. I have a lot of things, so I won't complain anymore. My profile page, linking everything, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo. So now on with, and those are links. You can click on them wherever you found this audio program. And now, I like movie reactions. I admit it. I'll admit it up front. I like watching the first time watching. First time watching is always in the title somewhere, usually, for videos, movies. YouTube videos, yeah, about movies, movie reaction content that so many people make nowadays. I like it mostly to get some sense of how people today view movies that I myself saw when they were released. The movies were released some time ago, when I was about their age watching today. So in other words, I may have seen a movie when I was 30, and then there's a reviewer, a reactor, and they may be 25, 30. So they're seeing the same movie I did around the same age. Not exactly, but around the same age. It's interesting to watch what they think. It's interesting to me. Some insights I gather include their appreciation of the style their appreciation for the style of movies made in the 80s and the 90s and even the 50s now and then, 12 Angry Men, with their recognition of practical effects, good stories, interesting characters, real sets, and so on. A lot of those are missing in the modern era. Oh, we'll just do CGI and really awful stories. Let's reboot a perfectly good movie and make it awful. So people express that, which is interesting. I think I'm not a movie culturist. I don't go totally in deep diving into movies and the lore and all that, but just from a practical, consumer of movie Hollywood entertainment, especially here in Vegas, Hollywood 2.0, never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Don't worry about it. It's interesting. It's just interesting for me to see. And then the cultural references and what people think today about what they're seeing. Some of the older movies have some things that wouldn't fly today, all that stuff. I also find it interesting how detached modern movie watchers are from the cultural references, like I just kind of alluded to. The history behind a particular movie or its various players, and in some cases the impact or aftermath, which are, of course, in the past for them. So when we would watch a movie in the 80s, whatever happened next is now, 40 years ago, more. So it is not a precisely aligned comparison, of course. My generation back then and this generation watching movies from back then, not perfect, not completely congruent, but I still find it interesting. Note that in those previous episodes of this program that I referred to, episode 33 was a sort of general take on reactions, usually YouTube-ish. Episode 63 was more about news and information reactions. Your Vosh and Hassan and what's that guy's name? Asmongold and a variety of others. Those are just the names off the top of my head. But that's more about pretty much political leaning content, which can be a little bit more divisive. Now I have broadened my horizons with more movie reactors, and I have some observations that might be more fun as we get into the new year that may not be so fun. The new year, that is. So yeah, this episode is not a game changer, but if you do like movie reactions, something to think about. What works? It is actually fun to sort of relive a movie watch, a watch along, if you will, to know ahead of time that the big scare or the funny line is coming, anticipating a reaction of some sort, or maybe pondering the lack of reaction. And this can happen if it's I'll tell you what one of the sort of a template for this or a prototypical, I guess. I was watching one of the Batman movies. I don't remember the name, but which one it was, but it was the one with what's the rubber face guy? Okay, I paused and looked it up. That was annoying me. Jim Carrey was playing the Riddler, Batman Forever. Okay, so there's Robin, Batman and Robin. They're in the Batboat. Now, I had seen the TV series when I was younger, so the Batboat made several appearances, the Bat Helicopter, all that stuff. Batcopter, I guess. So I was watching this movie in a theater with several people who did not speak English as their first language. They were new to America, English as a second language, etc. So we're watching this movie, and the Batboat comes upon the island where the Riddler is. I think it's the Riddler, maybe Two-Face, and I think it clangs into this fake island. I think it kind of bumps into it and makes a noise. Or maybe they get off the boat and they're climbing onto it or something. Maybe that's it. And Robin says to Batman, as was always the case in the series, "Holy rusted metal, Batman." And Batman says, "What?" And he said, "Well, it's made of rusty metal and it's got holes in it." Okay, so none of the people I was watching the movie with got that reference in the slightest because they had never seen the series, they had never read the graphic novels, and nor did I actually. But the series always had the pow, boom, bang, uh, holy rusted metal, that kind of thing. So the joke was lost, the reference was lost on the newcomers, right? So I see that a lot. I am not that old, but it was interesting to see what a 20-year-old thinks of a movie from the 90s that I enjoyed, but which I enjoyed in the context of the 90s. Oh, I'm sorry, I totally skipped over. I should point out I do not watch the Patreon versions. Am I not taking this episode seriously? It's not a heavyweight episode. I don't watch the Patreon versions of reaction videos because I'm also interested to see how they edit their summary responses and so on. And to be honest, if I'm going to watch an entire movie that I enjoy, I would rather just watch the movie without the kibitz, without the commentary. So summaries are fun and insightful. To me, I get to see what they think and which parts they think were worth sharing in the YouTube edit. And I can just leave that playing in the background if I'm doing something. So yeah, as I've suggested, the reactions and commentary by younger people watching older movies is interesting to compare against recollections of watching these movies when I was their age. I am not that old. See, that's where I jumped in here incorrectly. But it is interesting to see what a 20-year-old thinks of a movie from the 90s that I enjoyed, but which I enjoyed in the context of the 90s. That means the cultural references, but also some of the backstory on actors, directors, related movies, and so on. Do people today have insights into the feud between Arnie and Sly back then? No, probably not, but they like Predator and Rocky just fine. They do, actually. Maybe this is just an extension of my second point there, but I am particularly fascinated at how these reactions tend to be for older movies. Sure, they are catering to their audience with so-called member berries mostly, and they will often suggest that older movies are better than movies of today. They, the reaction people. Right? Obviously, this is not a universal comment, but nor is it made when it is all movies of today. So in other words, there's not these blanket statements. Oh, all movies from the 80s are better than all movies today. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what they're saying. But older movies come out well regarded relative to what hits the theaters today, which is probably telling and useful for anyone planning to build a movie theater sometime soon. I was literally watching, I don't remember which movie it was. Doesn't matter. It does, but it doesn't. The person reacting to this particular movie as it was playing, and I watch reaction videos for movies that I have seen and that I enjoyed. That makes it more interesting to have them just sort of playing while I'm working or doing other things. The comment was, the sets look amazing. It's so much better to have real sets than CGI. Right? That's a common theme. The look of the set, the character development, the character arcs, all that. These are often the sorts of comments that I'm hearing, which I think is interesting. The member berries. If you don't know what that is, I'm not going to tell you. So what does not work with movie reactions? And this is something I actually think about, believe it or not. So, because why think about total chaos and the ruining of neighborhoods and so on. Anyway, these are my takes, of course, and I've already hinted at this first one. There is no context for reactions today. Most reactors will point out right up front that they have absolutely no idea what it is they're about to watch, except for whatever they saw on a movie poster or equivalent, very little, or meme references over the years. Those are actually pretty common, that have become commonplace. But especially movie quotes, if you watch anyone reacting to the Terminator movie, you will hear almost universally, I know there's I'll be back, but I don't know what that means in this movie, so I'll find out. And then they always laugh in the police station scene. Oh, okay, that's where it comes from. And that's just one example of many. Popular movies become a part of popular culture, and then they kind of ripple through into the future with memes and so on. But for the most part, these reactions are in a vacuum, which is interesting, but ultimately not real. Normal people who like movies, who want to go see a movie, do not make it a requirement that they isolate completely and avoid looking up who is in the movie, for example. Let us take a particular case of this, a sequel. If someone sees Star Trek II or Rocky II, a reaction, someone, And they did see Star Trek the motion picture or Rocky. Maybe they saw all these movies. Well, they know a whole lot going in. Why not have at least this sort of familiarity, this level of familiarity in general? This is weird. Yes, people will literally say, I don't know anything about this movie. I know Arnold Schwarzenegger's in it, but that's all I know. Like, well, why not read? Why not read a little bit and just find out what you would if Star Trek: The Motion Picture were a sequel? And arguably it is, because people who saw the Star Trek motion picture, they may not have been huge Star Trek the original series fans, but they kind of knew they knew who Captain Kirk was. They knew who Spock was. So I think going in and attempting to isolate completely is not only impractical, it's unrealistic. And I think it actually subtracts from the experience. So, my opinion. This is really, really pedantic, this item, but there are many movies out there which, even without the culture or contemporaneous insights, cultural or contemporaneous insights, would benefit tremendously from at least a little bit of background, either before or even during the movie. Now, this does not work with the flow of a real-time watch-along format where Patreon members have pressed play on their local copy to watch in sync with their reactor. But maybe, and maybe, not but maybe, and maybe if the Patreon content is recorded as a live stream so that the watch-along is live, like you could chat, I suppose, there could be some chat in real time. And I kind of get the sense that there is. Again, I don't really watch the Patreon stuff, so I don't really dive that deeply into this. Like, I'm not interested in watching an entire movie again with comment. I would just rather watch the entire movie. But generally speaking, people are actually missing out on the nuance by taking this approach. Sure, subscriber revenue wins, so I understand their business model. And there is always an opportunity for several people to chime in with their own insights and comments, even on the edited down YouTube posts, which I don't have the impression that they are ever read. But still, the format and the monetization angle ultimately subtract, in my opinion. So in other words, because you're in this watch-along context, you're watching a movie at home. Now, in a movie theater, you'd have something similar. You can't necessarily check out, oh, who was that? What is that a reference? Oh, is that so-and-so? What other movie was that person? Right. So you can, in the modern era, if you're watching a movie at home, you can pull up IMDb, you can pull up fandom wiki, Wikipedia. So you can pull up information if you're curious. Sometimes you'll hear someone say, a reaction person will say, oh, who is that? Let me know in the comments if I should watch any of them. Right. So there's that level of interaction. It can be after the fact. But I think that this, yes, it draws the audience in. And yes, that's probably good for business. It's probably good for audience retention, and engagement, and all that sort of thing. But I think it ultimately subtracts for the movie if you don't know, again, anything about the actors, but you also have to then ask these questions. You're not necessarily reacting to me. I guess you're expressing these questions out loud, which in a movie theater setting, of course, you would not want to do. You'd keep it a little bit quiet. But again, I just think this subtracts from everybody's experience to have these. It's kind of, now in my Batman Forever example, if everyone had looked over at me. And by the way, they did, because I chuckled. I was like, haha. And then they all looked at me like, what is that supposed to mean? They didn't say, what is that supposed to mean? But the look was, why is that funny? In this setting, it's very similar. And I could say, oh, well, and I can explain it. But then that takes everyone away from watching the movie. So I think the notion is fractured a little bit in that regard. I've come across two reactors, one individual who goes by the YouTube channel or handle Whimsery, and a couple on their TBR Schmidt channel, husband and wife, who actually do post-watch research. The couple, TBR Schmidt couple, they do it immediately post-watch. Well, and often, so it's on camera. Usually they'll pull up IMDb, or they'll search for a term or something. And it's often left for the YouTube edit, so it's left in there. So you get to, oh yeah, I wanted to look up was this real? Did this really happen? If it's a historical reference, etc. So they'll actually look. So it's for the sake of their end note commentary after they've watched the movie. Otherwise, aside from asking open questions to draw in audience partition, hey, let me know what you think. Let me know if I should, that kind of thing. That's good for user audience engagement. So aside from asking those, what we end up with most of the time is mechanized movie consumption pipeline without the context, without getting the references, without the nuance and backstories of the movie, of the actors, of the other movies, of the prequels, all that stuff. And without taking away what the movie offers is a little homework assignment of sorts to get an aha moment now and then, both, maybe now and then, as is often the case with the two examples I gave, Whimsy and TBR Schmidt. So Whimsy is younger. She watches the movie yet again and then edits down her watch for the YouTube version. Now, I don't know if she posts, I guess she wouldn't post that on her Patreon. So watch the movie, the full movie with the Patreon audience, then edit down for publication on YouTube. But she rewatches the movie again, and here she can actually research things, which she apparently does, and then she will comment and rate the best, her favorite actor, favorite scenes, or whatever. So to me, that's actually an interesting way to do this. If you're going to be a movie reactor, you actually find out, kind of put yourself back in time a little bit, or you can explore some of the references that you did not know at the time, right? There's and to me, if they don't do that, that's too bad, is a resolution for my part. That's too bad they didn't look that up. Now I will give one example where this actually would have made a difference. There's a particular person who reacts to movies. I just started watching her content, her productions, probably like 2 weeks ago, and I've watched a couple of them. And there was one, I'm not going to spoil it, but she watched Constantine, which is, I enjoy that movie. That's fine. So she actually is fairly religious a person, not obtrusively, but she is. So she enjoyed some of the biblical references, of course, and she made comments about that. However, she did not wait for the post-credit scene. And if you're familiar with the movie, after the credits roll, there's actually a sort of surprising scene, but to me, that would have probably made the movie that much better for her and her reactions. She cut her watch short as the credits were rolling. She was making some comments and observations, and then that was it. So she completely missed out on what I'm going to guess would have been an impactful final few seconds in the post-credit scene. That's unfortunate. Now, if she went through and rewatched the movie for the purposes of a more thorough reaction, perhaps she would have let the post-credit scene run and she would have said, oh, I didn't know about that extra part. That can happen if people actually sort of proactively participate in the movie reaction workflow. So I think the two, so Whimsy and TBR Schmidt, they actually do a little production by street. They actually do a little bit of reading afterwards. So if you have this pipeline where you just want to turn out movie reactions, you're not gonna be as thorough. So you can find some differences there. There's another one. I think it's James on Film. He's an actual videographer or budding director, so he's in the business. He makes some interesting observations about production technique. So he's not doing the old, I really like the sound design or the color grading. He's not doing that kind of thing, but more how a shot is made, what the perspective is. But it's more about appreciation, not a critique. It's like, oh, look at that. Oh, that's amazing. Look at this, the way he lighted that shot. So those observations are interesting also. I don't know that he goes back and picks up on the nuances, but he's actually a little bit more detailed during with a little bit more critical eye. So that's also kind of interesting. Anyway, I think though that turning watching movies, and as a little bonus here, you'll often hear, oh, I've been wanting to watch this movie, So I'm glad to see it won the poll for like movie I should watch this week. So it turns the process of watching, well, it turns the enjoyment of watching movies into a process that fits into what is essentially a small business. That also might not be great. So what may we do about this? Well, this episode of FFS Talk is more for fun and commentary than achieving some addressable consensus. But I would have to ask whether there would be value in a reaction video for people who have seen a particular movie. Like, I'm rewatching this, right? It could be me. It could be somebody who just saw the movie for the first time ever last week. But sort of like the Whimsy example, do not so much a reaction. Well, a reaction, but I watched the movie the second time, and here's what I came away with, right? This runs the risk of becoming a critique, which is a different kind of thing. But at the same time, we see reaction videos that are commentary on talk shows, debates, press conferences, and so on, where the reactor often has a particular position and is reacting to what they know or are told about a taped interview or debate or whatever it is. And usually it's a contrary presentation, which their audience would typically enjoy as a sort of a smackdown. So the person reacting will be anti whatever their position is, or will have expressed opinions that are contrary to what they're about to react to. So that's kind of, these are known quantities, sort of, or if they're reacting to someone that they are a friend of the show kind of thing, then you kind of know it's going to be more of a supportive engagement. Yeah, I agree with them. Oh, I disagree with that one part. But so you kind of foreshadow what it's not an exchange so much, what the presentation will be by reacting to an ally or an enemy, if you like. So you kind of know that going in. Now that doesn't have an effect on movie reactions, because you're typically not an enemy, or you're not ideologically opposed to what a movie is going to be, especially if you don't know anything about it. So, do you remember watching some movie from like 30 years ago? Insights and responses you may recall from that time, right? So you have seen the movie, but it was you're far removed from it, and how you might feel differently today. So if I were to, I see people watch Terminator, for example. That's been, thanks to the YouTube algorithm, once you watch one thing related to Terminator, you're gonna get a dozen Terminator related recommendations. So the comment today, believe it or not, is that, now I don't want to spoil this if you've never seen Terminator, because apparently there's a lot of people who've never seen that movie. There's a section where there's a repair affected after an injury, and there's a knife involved and an eye. There's like an X-Acto blade and like a razor blade and an eye. And during that scene, there's a special effect. It's apparently a practical effect. Today, through the lens of today's modern special effects, it's very clearly a practical effect. Like, oh, okay, that's it's not awful, but there's no mistaking it. But you'll hear people today say, "Oh, that's gross," or "Oh, that's." So they're more commenting on their reaction. They're reacting to the reaction than making any sort of comment on like, that could look better. That could have looked better. If you're familiar with the Alien movie, when Ash is, I don't want to spoil that for anyone either, but there's a scene with Ash that you're like, that is a practical effect. That is some rubber, that's some latex maybe, and some heavy cream maybe. So the point is that people looking back at these, they don't offer a critical eye on these things, better or worse. But for someone who saw the movie originally, and back then we were like, oh, like you're not really focused on, because you've never seen a CGI movie, right? So to me, there's some interesting take possibly on reflecting. So reacting, but also reflecting on, oh boy, the first time I saw this movie, this, and now, oh, that scene wouldn't play well today. Oh, you couldn't really do that today. You couldn't say that kind of thing. You couldn't, so it might be interesting, or maybe it'd be a little bit too much. Not sure. I will wonder aloud whether a sort of reaction wiki or database or something, and you have these. So it could actually be references to existing resources. But whether this would be useful now, useful to whom? Well, why answer the same question n times across n reactors? I'm not saying people do this, but you'll start to see the same sorts of questions. Oh, what did that mean? Oh, I don't really know anything about the Vietnam War. What is apocalypse now? Is that the way it really was? Hey, fun fact: the reporter who was telling the soldiers to keep moving, don't look in the camera, that was the director of the movie. So there's those little fun facts and tidbits which are often asked during the movie, or people will point it out in the comments, right? Okay. So they all watched the same movie from 30 years ago. So like I said, you'll see the same movie show up thanks to YouTube recommendations. But, 30 people have done reaction videos that you are presented with at some point in your recommendations for the Terminator and Terminator 2 and so on. So there'll be a flurry of related movies, which makes it really easy if you're so inclined to say, oh yes, let me tell you the answer to the whatever, and just do that 20 times. If you hear someone ask, who is Charlton Heston? And I have heard that guy looks familiar. Or is that the guy from Aliens? Bill Paxton comes up a lot. Bill Paxton was a very popular actor, and it's unfortunate that he left early. Or anything along those lines. Crowdsourced, of course, watching reactions where they know enough to simply say, oh, okay. Right? So almost like an introductory document. No spoilers. It might be an interesting experiment, and to be honest, would provide useful spoiler-free information to anyone watching a good movie from a while ago, right? Why not be informed enough to enjoy the movie, or to get the jokes, to get the references, to understand the relationship to real history? Oh, I wonder if this was what really happened, right? You can let them know. There might be a section like, see, here's some preamble before you watch the movie. And then here's a couple of frequently asked questions afterwards. No, this was not called U571. Never happened. It is an amalgam of a few different stories, but the movie itself, a construction. What else is generative AI good for, right? You can just have AI pull together a summary document. Some things should be made aware of before. Like I said, with the sequels, if you watch Star Trek 2, and often movies are made so that you don't, it's a standalone. You wouldn't have had to watch the entire X-Files series with the two different storylines to understand the X-Files movie, but it helped to know who Mulder and Scully were before you saw the movie. So it's sort of a prep document and then an after action. Here's what that meant. Someone can look these up individually, but I think if it's curated so that someone, and again, this doesn't have to be for movie reaction people, it could be for anyone. If I was talking to someone 20 years old right now, which I try to avoid, and I said, oh, did you ever see the Terminator movie? And they said, no. And I would say, oh, that's one of those movies that was kind of a change in the nature of, like, Star Wars set the tone for blockbuster sort of science fiction. It sort of proved the model for science fiction, but also blockbuster movie. Terminator started a career for Arnold Schwarzenegger. You can forget about the Conan movies because he was barely talking in those movies, but it wasn't he Handsome Stranger in a movie? Was that the one? And he was literally dubbed over by, anyway, but everyone remembers Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Terminator, right? So someone watching that movie today, again, has none of the cultural familiarity, none of the contemporaneous awareness. So you could actually provide spoiler-free introductions for movies. Almost, you could do that for anything. Say, hey, history, you probably haven't read much about it, but here are some things you should know before you dive into the topic of whatever it is you think you understand when you're commenting on YouTube. So I still think it's interesting, though. Did I cover since the movie reaction environment is not strictly broken, it may be that there is nothing to fix. So I'm not saying, quick, drop what you're doing and we must repair this entire cultural thing. despite pointing out some of the things that may not work for some, me included, as I've done here. I still think this is an interesting, even fascinating cross section of the psychology and awareness and so on of our younger interlocutors, some on YouTube who in real time, or some in real time, some in real life, who might ask, even in real life, so who is Charlton Heston? That happens all the time. That happens all the time. And I have to say, if someone were to ask me who Timothy Chalamet was, I'd be like, I know who he is. I know he's been in Dune, but I don't know anything about him, right? So I can't expect someone to say, oh, who's Charlton Heston? And then they know, oh, he was in these movies and he's known for this, and right. I didn't know that Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone didn't get along. Well, yeah, they were kind of, it was a testosterone thing, trying to compete for the action star thing. But either way, after all this, I do enjoy a good reaction video. Rocky gets a lot of interesting reactions. I just had it playing yesterday when I was writing this, a reaction. It's a new person who I had not seen before. Just caught a couple of her reaction videos over the past 3 days or so. It was interesting to see her take, and she is of Italian descent. And so at some point she says, oh, Italian Stallion, is that where that came from? Because when I used to play volleyball, they used to call me the Italian Stallion. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know where that came from. I didn't know the origin of the comment. So, and then she had some commentary about, oh, this was an interesting movie. I didn't know. So Sylvester Stallone wrote it, I guess. Okay. So, but then, if you delve into the backstory, it might be a little interesting afterwards. Say, hey, by the way, that dog was really his dog, Butkus. Bupkus? No, Butkus. Bupkus? I can't remember. Fun fact. One of those. That was actually his dog. And that's Talia Shire. She was in Godfather. And that's, and she's related to, so you could actually, because some of these older movies have impact moving forward, and the way the story was constructed, like how did this actually get made? They didn't want Sylvester Stallone to play the role, and it turns out, and just like when an author reads their own book for an audiobook, he wrote the story, so it was a story he was prepared to tell from inside the story. What else? There's a couple other things. But anyway, the take home is that when someone who sees a really good movie today has none of that context, I think it kind of leaves out some of the interestingness of the movie. Some of those things we would learn contemporaneously after we saw the movie. So similarly, after they see the movie, they don't have to go into it knowing these things. But after the movie, it'd be interesting to have a little rundown that is not based on who happened to want to make a YouTube comment. But, here's the after, don't open till after the movie. That was his dog. And, there was some other thing she did in there. Doesn't matter. The take home, I like to have these reaction videos playing because I think with one or two exceptions that they aren't coming to mind at the moment, but, it's movies I've seen. I will often take a movie, for example, 12 Angry Men, great movie. You should watch the remake from the 90s, 93, I think it is, with George C. Scott and Jack Lemmon. That is not quite, it's a different flavor, it's a different time, but I think it's a close second to the one, and by the way, the one that was filmed in, I think, 57 or something, is great, is a great movie, but it itself is not the first time. They actually had a television production, and it's a play and so on. But I watched like 15 different reaction videos about 12 Angry Men, and the through line was that the quality of the movie and the take home message and so on. So it was interesting to watch and compare these things. So that's something that I find enjoyable, and it doesn't have anything to do with the modern era of total chaos and destruction. So yeah, a little, maybe it's the fact that I saw those movies when I was a kid or younger. So it's a little bit of a throwback effect. Oh yes, the good old days when movies were real and problems weren't. Anyway, I'll leave it there. This was a little bit lighter than normal, but you may even have opinions on this. So eventually we will have actual conversation, debate, even argument about these various things, and we'll see what we can do about that. Take care. Thank you for listening as always, and we'll see you next time, or you'll hear me next time. One of those. Take care. Bye-bye.